Welcome back to the second straight week of a disheartening Rutgers post-game show on TKR. Joining me today is Larry K. from, most of you should know his face at this point, but I'm sorry, I had a
Night watch.
My night watch. Jesus, I had like zero brain cells, and then we just had to watch that game where we blew a 14-point lead to lose on the road 31-28 to the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Before we get into kind of what happened in the game, talk about what Schiano said, this podcast is presented to you once again by FanDuel. Rutgers covered today. The line shrank from 5.5 to 3.5 when the Darius Taylor news came out. I don't really have any good bets for you, but shout out to our sponsor, FanDuel. All right, so a lot of bad from this game. Going into a bye week and the schedule looking ahead doesn't necessarily fill you with the warm and fuzzies, but what's like the one main thing that stuck out to you about the game today, Larry, that kind of encapsulates why Rutgers lost this?
I think there was just an immense level of inconsistency. And I mean, Greg said it, and we'll get to that, but a lack of execution. You know, you get out to a 14-0 start. And quite honestly, you know, Minnesota by the end of the game, I think my assessment was a little different. I think there's a lot of evenly matched athletes on the field. But early on, Mike, I thought we looked like the better team, you know, in really most phases. And to then kind of have a blunder with a broken coverage, followed immediately by turnover in our own end that allowed a quick 14-point turnaround. And then later in the game, when we're driving and our offense is the strength of the team and the clock's on our side because you can wind it down as much as you'd like, we're calling timeouts. Then we're going hurry up. Then we're calming down. Then the ball goes through the quarterback's legs. I just think a lack of inconsistency, especially and specifically with regard to execution, doomed Rutgers in really all three phases. The offense wasn't immune from it this week.
Yeah, and this is marking, you know, the second game in a row where Rutgers offense comes out firing, comes out on, you know, for the most part, you know, like gangbusters, and then just totally goes quiet for the middle part of the game.
It's becoming a trend.
It's a disturbing trend because this is a game that Rutgers, outside of a few plays, and, you know, that's all football is a series of plays strung together. But outside of like a handful of plays, I thought Rutgers was the better team. I thought the defense did step up several times when they needed them to, but the offense and special teams let them down. The missed field goals and blocked field goals. This is now the third. There's been 4 blocked kicks in the last 3 games for the Scarlet Knights. Schiano kind of alluded to, you know, maybe they're more of Jay Patel's fault than the blocking part, because that, you know, the opening drive, the field goal on that one was just, the trajectory was, you know, me and you could have just been standing there, not even have our hands up, and when that, you know, could have clonked off our heads. Just way too low of an approach angle. That was an issue with the extra point against Norfolk State too. I don't really have a good explanation as to why they got the kick block against Iowa, but Jay Patel's got to be, you know, rattled right now the way he's performing. And I do want to touch on the 56-yarder at the end. This has always been the plan since, you know, the summer, that they were going to trot him out there. Dame Pizarro for the long field goals. Richie's talked about that they have a second field goal guy who's going to be out there at some point this season, and you saw it. He got a clean look at it. It was a good kick, and maybe if that was 53 yards instead of 56, that might have been a make. But the issues that we're seeing are not new issues, which is the more unsettling part.
Yeah, and I think, you know, what even leads up to that initially blocked field goal, and I think there's no question now, you know, I've been kind of an advocate of Patel, and I want to see him succeed, but it was obvious that the trajectory was just not good enough. It was too low. They made a point of saying it on the broadcast. It's obvious. But what leads up to that, you go through the entire drive and you easily get down into the red zone. And look, there were times, to be honest with you, where I think Raymond made something out of nothing, where I think the coaches were content to kick a field goal or punt it, and he turned it into a game. And I think that's like an underlying subtext there. But they run 3 times in that first drive when the ball is being thrown so well. I understand once or twice to put them off balance, but 3 straight times. I think Shiraka overall called a pretty good game, so I don't want to get on him too bad. But that first drive, you come away with no points, partly because of the play calling before the field goal, and then another special teams blunder. It's just frustrating, and it makes a difference in the score at the end of the game. But then, what I said about Raymond, kind of interesting. A couple times they were calling handoffs on 3rd and long. He made something out of it. They go into a shell sometimes still a little bit. It's not going to be talked about. But that was interesting to me too, and that cost us on that first drive.
Yeah, no, 1st and goal from the 4. You lose a yard on 1st down. You lose 3 yards on 2nd down running the ball. Then on 3rd down, you run it again. 3rd and goal from the 7. Maybe they're thinking, get them off guard. They did that a few times later in the game.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things that really kept us in the game. But maybe they thought they could set up like a tush-push situation because they've shown they're really pretty ballsy when it comes to going for it on 4th down when you especially in the red zone. But yeah, don't even give them an opportunity to have that, and then they get the kick blocked. Ian Strong was surprisingly quiet in this one. I did feel like Ethan probably played his worst game of the season, which for his standards this season would have been maybe his best game of last year. So I think we also have to kind of have that kind of context. But I feel like he didn't take some of the gimmies that were available to him at times, trying to force balls into tight windows, trying to go for kind of the big chunk yard gains rather than just taking what the defense presented him. And he probably could have had 2 or 3 more balls picked off than he did today. He had the 1 interception early in the game, but Ethan, I don't think he played a great game. It's probably a B- for him, which is still, like I said, would have maybe been his best game of the last season. But the passing game in general was totally inept for almost half of this game, the middle half. And thank God for Antoine Raymond.
It seemed like when they adjusted and started bringing pressures at first, it got the O-line rattled. It got Ethan a little bit rattled. They didn't quite know how to attack it initially. They settled in and eventually were able to attack it. But there's been somewhat of a trend with Ethan that I've seen where I love the bravado and I love the moxie he has to throw the ball and let it fly, but sometimes he's squeezing it into windows where there's 2-3 guys there. Sometimes it's a beautiful catch and it works out for the team. But there was a play, Mike, to your point, later in the game. I don't think it ended up costing them because I think Raymond had a great run after it, but Long was open, a little bit closer in on an out route, 3 yards from the marker, and he forces it over the top of him to Sheffield, I believe, in double coverage. And sometimes it worked with him in Illinois, put the team on his back. I wish we had won that game, but there's been spots where he tries to do too much sometimes and tries to get it all back at once. I thought he was pressing when they scored and it was 14-7 and he wound up turning the ball over. There were several throws there that could have been turned over. I thought sometimes he presses a little too much, and you got to take what the defense gives you. This trend of middle of the game sagging, I think maybe has something to do with adjustments, that we're not quick enough when another team adjusts to us, but not his best game. Obviously the best quarterback we've had in a long time still, but still something to be desired in some of these pressure situations, not all the time, but as of recent, especially where he presses too much and creates problems.
Yeah, it's still it's a good situation for us to be in relative to the past decade or two, but still when you kind of can see it and you can see when he's playing at his best versus how he played today, certainly didn't live up to his own probably expectations. And I'm sure he wanted that game more than anybody to go 2-0 against his old team in his college career. Obviously that wasn't in the cards, but if you're going to give an MVP of the game, it certainly had to be Antoine Raymond. 26 carries for 161 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a bunch of just back-breaking runs when, it's 3rd and 15 and, it's basically a surrender draw play and he goes for 20, or, setting up that touchdown that didn't look like we were going to score any points at the end of the first half. And he gets it down to the 1 yard line with less than a minute remaining, setting up the score to make it 21-14 before half. But he just was incredible today.
Yeah, absolute beast. It's just a shame. I think it might wind up being, and we'll do the postmortem when the postmortem comes. His team isn't dead yet, but there's guys that emerge and have great games, especially on the offense, and it's terrible when they have those games in losses and things. It's like he has a breakout game, runs excellently. He was 160 plus yards or something. I mean, his average was excellent, and it's in a loss, So yeah.
So Cinema Man, Antoine Raymond was the guy from the get-go. His bold performance earned him that for sure. Don't mind me if I'm putting some comments up here.
No, it's fine.
But
what do you think, Mike, speaking of running backs, of Sam Brown coming in and anything on why Benjamin didn't get the run? I'm glad to see Sam get some reps. I love the guy. It's good to see him back, but I thought he would have been eased in more. A little bit of rough, like when in a blitz pickup, I think he got kind of pancaked.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Why? I wonder what the thinking was there with Benjamin. I mean, he's a good guy, a change of pace guy who we've been talking about all season, and Brown gets the carries. I don't think it made a difference because Raymond was so good anyway, but just an interesting caveat there, a little thing, wrinkle.
Yeah, I mean, the way it's very puzzling the way that Schiano talks about Deshaun Benjamin anytime he's brought up, and it's seemingly like every other week. And talks about wanting to get him more carries, talks about him just being such like a good team player and things like that. And then you have an opportunity when CJ Campbell goes down for carries to be picked up by somebody, and he doesn't get any touches. Like last week, I think he had 2 carries. I think Antoine Raymond had like 16 or 18. This week, he's got no touches on the game. Sam Brown, 5 carries for 12 yards. Antoine Raymond, 26 rushes. I don't know. I think Deshaun Benjamin feels like a guy that would be better if they got him in space on like screens, or if they hit him on some wheel routes. We've seen him with a lot of success there, but he's not really like a kind of grinder up the middle. And I think Antoine Raymond has developed himself into a better pass catcher than I thought he could be. But I don't have a good answer for you. I think it's strange given the way Schiano constantly talks him up, but he's just, I don't know. I don't have a great answer because it's not like he made a catastrophic error at any point that I know of, at least. He hasn't had a fumble, no like missed, blocking assignment. So I don't know. I wish I knew.
Interesting. And the trenches, in a game like this, you don't necessarily go in thinking you're going to be overmatched per se, the way you would with a Wisconsin and Iowa. But I thought there were times where our protection was okay, but you look at the sack numbers. I think there were 7 sacks for Minnesota. So our offensive line, I know on the outside we have the injury to Chin and there's some issues there. They took advantage of that. And then on the reverse, Mike, Weaver finally gets home and gets a sack. It was at an opportune time for us, and you think maybe they're going to turn the corner. But the next drive, we're back in the backfield and chasing, Drake Lindsay around and can't get anywhere near him. And it's not like he's Parker Navarro or somebody. He's a good quarterback, but it's, and it's the trenches again. We're going to talk about skill positions. We're going to talk about guys in the defense and the perimeter getting burned or missing things. But again, these trenches, we've upgraded vastly, but there's still something to be desired sometimes as far as consistency on both sides. We kind of got dominated at times, even on the offensive side,
Yeah, we did. Ethan, outside of like the 1 sack where Sam Brown gets destroyed on a pass block on a free rusher and he's able to scoop up the sack, I think a lot of them were either coverage sacks where Ethan didn't have anybody open and he's kind of navigating the pocket. A few times, their tackles just flat out got beat around the edge. Not a whole lot you could do there, but he was holding onto the ball for a long time. Without seeing like the all 22, it's really tough to kind of see like, was there a guy who sprung open and he just didn't see him? Because Ethan, he tends to be like a single side read type quarterback where he's kind of 1 to 2 is either on the right side or left side. He rarely goes from left to right or right to left through his progressions. And so it's tough to really kind of know if he's just not seeing the guys who are open or if they were just playing good coverage. I think Minnesota, for the most part on the day, actually did a pretty good job in their secondary defending against Rutgers. Vaunted passing attack, but it's just you can't give up 6-7 sacks. You can't lose the turnover battle. You can't, because not only did you have the blocked kick, they're lucky that Minnesota didn't score again before half. This is the same issue we saw last week against Iowa. It was like watching Freaky Friday, where you have a return sprung by the other team that gets them in field goal range. Iowa maybe 1 second too late on their punt return, but they, Minnesota set themselves up for what, a 50-ish yard field goal. Yeah, 50-yard field goal. Thankfully, they have one of the worst kickers in the Big Ten. I think the guy Brady Denneberg is 3 of 10 from 40 plus in his career. So kind of got lucky that they didn't score again there. But you have a field goal blocked and you lose a game by 3. It's hard not to look at special teams and just kind of wonder, like, what the, this is supposed to be Greg's specialty. We for years it's been it's been considering special teams like a third phase of the game rather than an afterthought. Typically when you're poor on special teams, it's either an indication of like a lack of talent on in your two deep, or it's a lack of attention to detail. Now, is it a lack of attention to detail because you have so many transfers that have come in and are being thrust into serious roles, or is it that we don't really have a lot of functional depth on defense? I think it's a little bit of A, a little bit of B. I don't think it's probably that black and white, but it's a concern for sure. Like Schiano, this looks like the furthest thing from a Schiano team that I can ever remember at Rutgers for under him.
Yeah, and look, I mean, in our preseason preview that we did, one of the things I brought up that I was thinking about, and I've been thinking about, is, are we going to have those X factors on defense and special teams? This was a program, even in Schiano 2.0, that we opened, come out the gate against Michigan State in 2020, with 3 turnovers. I think earlier we won that game because, it's the fundamental attention to detail. It's not always luck. It's, are you always punching at the ball when you're bringing a guy down? Some people were commenting that they were loose with the balls. Might have been Anderson, one of the guys we were talking to, that Minnesota was loose with the ball. We got to get a turnover. Special teams, there's an X factor. There's a wrinkle. There's something other teams haven't seen. There's a guy who's in a certain position who's going to make teams pay if they don't pay attention to him. To your point, Mike, this has always been the reason I think Greg had so much success early in his career, was implementing those X factors on special teams and defense to make up for some of the talent gaps and whatnot. Now, a year or two ago, I started discussing, does this program now think it's at a point where they can just line up helmet on helmet and win? Now, sometimes, yes, you don't have to go crazy. You don't have to be running flea flickers and trick plays every down, but you still need some extra element of oomph to get you over the hump in certain games. And I think it's been missing from the program for a couple years. Now, I know the Michigan State game 2 years ago, the punt block, and I know we had some blocks out of conference, but it's really concerning to me, A, that Greg is coaching special teams and we're seeing this, and B, that we're seeing this from 2 phases of the game that he's supposed to be an expert in. If Schiano isn't bringing us those 2 elements and giving us the X factor, what's the identity of the program at a base level? And we could segue maybe into what he said if you wanted to, but he opens it up with, it's on coaching and we've got to be in sync. It's the players and the coaches. I think he's aware coaching has something to do with it, but it's really starting to get concerning to me now. And I don't know, Mike, I was joking, but him and Rob Smith could change. Maybe Schiano could go back to defense, and Smith was good at the special teams back in 2009. I'm just saying, I know it's pie in the sky, but something's got to give.
Yeah, I think it's certainly, I don't know what's, I don't know what the full answer is to fix, the multitude of issues we have on special teams or defense, but I think it's pretty clear that, Rob Smith's scheme is not working right now for what we're trying to accomplish, which is just winning football. So, and he hasn't been able to, successfully, I wouldn't say call a defense, but he hasn't had a great defense in a long time. And several programs have cast him off and been happy to get rid of him over the last decade or 2. So I don't know. I can't imagine bringing him back next year personally, but
no, agreed.
Let's go to the Schiano press conference, and we can talk about what he said afterwards.
Well, again, guys, thanks for traveling out here to cover us. I'll answer any questions that I can. Right now we're in a situation where we're struggling to consistently execute as a team, and consistency is in my experience the last thing that comes. So we just have to stick to it. It'll come. And understand that consistency of execution is not a player issue and it's not a coaching issue. It's an us issue. We coach the players. We have to find ways to get them to consistently execute. We have to give them schemes, techniques. There's got to be a camaraderie. There's got to be a bond. All those things contribute to consistent execution. We have a great group of guys that are really hurting in there right now, a great group of coaches that are really hurting, but we're just coming up a little short. And I'm well aware that, today there was issues with the pass game, 300 and something yards throwing, right? So we need to go back to work and figure out what's the best thing for us to do with the current people and the staff. And that's my job. I'm in charge of that. And we'll do that. But it sure hurts for those players. And we need to consistently execute as a program. Right now, that's where we're missing. So I'll open it up for questions.
Off of that, I guess from your view, where did you see like the defensive breakdowns were that allowed them to keep regaining momentum after you guys were getting?
Well, number one, we haven't taken the ball away. We've done a poor job. We're trying some tip passes. We're just not coming up with them right now. As I tell them, you just got to keep getting your hands on it. There were some balls that were moving around in the ball carrier's hands. We're just inches away from getting it. So you just got to stay after it. We are not tackling the way that we're capable of tackling, but it today was about coverage. I thought that we just didn't cover the way we're capable of, but until you do it consistently, it's just what you think. Right now, you would say that's, an issue that is exposed itself. So that's something that we certainly, have to go to work on. And, the bye week is a time that we can, really dig in. And as I talked to the team about, we need to really look in the mirror, every person, starting with me, of am I doing everything I can to give this team the best chance to win? And that question can be for everybody in the program. And that's the question that I challenged everybody with, starting with this guy, because, we've lost the turnover battle. We don't win when we don't win the turnover battle. We don't win when we turn the ball over, right? Some uncharacteristic things of our program, but, they are what they are, and we got to change them.
Have you seen anything in this defense that gives you confidence that they can get better as the season goes on?
Yeah, sure I have. If you look, I think they're definitely improving. It's just not fast enough. We're playing in the Big Ten. It's not a training ground, would they rush for 37 yards? So the guys played good run defense, but if you can throw the ball the way they did, maybe you just give up on the run. I thought that they did a good job. I'm not taking credit away from Minnesota. I thought they did an excellent job throwing the ball. I thought they did an excellent job protecting. They did some things that I thought helped them protect. But at the end of the day, we have to be able to cover, or we have to change what we do. And, I see us do it, but then I see us not do it. So what's the inconsistency? That's where we have to, get to the bottom of it.
Might be too soon after the game to ask this, but just what happened on that snap at the end of the game there, and then I guess what caused that issue?
Yeah, just what you would think, right? It was noise. It was a communication mishap and very unfortunate play, but one that, again, to me, I put that on me. Like, look, those are situations that you train your team for. Did we have all the things you need? Sure. We had the crowd noise going this week. We knew what the environment would be when on third down, especially, and at the end of the game. And that we didn't execute. That's what I mean when I say execution. There's a fine line when you play in the Big Ten Conference. There's a fine line as you witness winning and losing. And we've come out on the short end 2 times because we just haven't executed well enough. In our coverage, we're getting holding penalties or, that kind of thing that, those kill you. Those are automatic first downs. And then the shot play we gave up today, we can't give up those big plays, those explosive plays. But we have. So we can't, but we have. So we need to. And then uncharacteristically also, we gave up 7 sacks. And that Now, part of that is coverage and part of that is rush. And do they have some good rushers? They sure do. But we did some things execution-wise that we haven't had any trouble with. So that makes me concerned as well. So we got to look. There's 2 things you can do. You can roll up your tent and say, "Oh, this isn't our year," and you guys know that ain't the case. I mean, we're going to go to work and we're going to get this fixed, and we're going to take them one at a time, just like we always do. We were 0-1 in this season, and we're going to have a bye week, and then we're going to have the Washington season, and that's the way it is.
Do you anticipate any changes in the bye week, whether that's play caller, that's who plays on defense, or any drastic changes defensively?
No, way too early to even think that way. Like I said, the first thing I got to do, and I got a nice long plane ride home, and is look in the mirror and say, how can I do a better job for our entire program? That's where it starts. And then after that, I'll dig in deep, and we actually have a little time to do that, which you normally don't. But we will be back. This team is there's a great group of people in there, and they're going to stick together and they're going to work really hard, and we're going to continue to get better. People don't want to hear this because it's not like an answer, but to me, it is the answer. Incremental improvement over time. And it's like this, little bits, and we'll just keep doing it, and we'll get there. I'm not, I can't say I'm not concerned. I am concerned. I feel like we need to figure this thing out in a hurry, and that's what we're going to do.
Final question.
Just a two-parter on the kicker situation. Are you concerned with Jay Patel? It's not 3 straight field goals he's had either blocked or missed, and the decision to go with Dayton Pizarro at the last kick as opposed to Jay.
Yeah, I mean the first kick was not a good kick. It is what it is. And that is a concern because that's been an issue the last couple of weeks, and that has not been an issue. So we'll work. Now I think he worked on it during the game, and he improved, and he kicked well. The end of the game, that's a 56-yard field goal. That's not in Jay's range. So we've always had a long-range kicker, and that's what Dane was. And as you saw, he hit it plenty long enough. He just missed it a little right. But yeah, that's why that was done. Again, guys, I appreciate you taking the time to come all the way out here and cover us, and we will be back. I give you my word. Thanks.
So that was Greg Schiano in his post-game presser. We also have Craig Epstein joining us to discuss this game. But for anybody who is playing the What Will Schiano Say drinking game, you're probably just sloshed off your butt right now. Because I think basically everything he said, we were fully expecting him to say, whether it be the incremental improvement stuff or whether it be we're close, we'll get there, blah blah blah. Like they're just like these empty platitudes that he kind of always says after heartbreaking losses. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of tired of it. Like I just want to see this team play better. I want to see them not making the same mistakes that they did week 1 in week 5 now. I want to see a defense that looks like they have a pulse regularly, because I gave them some credit for making a few stops, but they were not good enough today to win this game. I'd like to see our special teams stop allowing huge kick returns and punt returns and stop allowing easiest blocks the other teams ever gotten. And I'd like to see more blocked punts. Like today they came close, but it seems like they had made a conscious effort to kind of hold up, especially in the second half. There was one that I feel like most times you do get blocked. But Greg, what's something that stood out to you that Craig Schiano said in his presser?
Yeah, it's just, and I think I'm kind of preaching to a choir here now. It's just like it's tough to really preach patience and incremental growth now in year 6, because it's like, again, it's year 6. Like at some point, we talked about last week, it felt like if Rutgers could have gotten that win against Iowa, maybe they're taking that next step to maybe that like second tier type of the Big Ten, and the Iowas and the Illinois and teams like that. But again, it just feels like falling right back to earth, where it's like to me, it's like it feels like the Big Ten. I don't know if you agree with me or not. It feels like the Big Ten kind of has like a 4-tier system where it's like the top of the top, where it's like the Michigan, well, usually Michigan, the heavyweights, Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon. Those teams are the top of the top, like always good. Like you always can count on them. Then you got kind of that second tier of like Iowa, and I guess you can put Illinois in there because they have, although not last week, but you kind of have this year. It's kind of Indiana, where you have like those teams who are like kind of trying to break through to that top spot and like are right there. then you got that third tier where it's like, again, the Minnesotas and the Rutgers, where it's like they're just trying to fight to that respectability to try and get to that second tier where it's like they're never gonna be like Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan. They're never gonna be like those blue blood type of programs, but can they get to a level of respectability where it's like every once in a while they can put maybe a scare in those type of teams and beat in Illinois every once in a while and beat in Iowa, which again, Rutgers is now winless against Iowa still. So, and then you kind of got like that fourth tier. That's like the bottom of the barrel to me. That's like Purdue, Northwestern teams like that. So it just felt like coming into this year, Rutgers is at that third tier. But we watched this offense we saw this week that Connor Rogers was talking about eighth and potentially like a draft, like a name in the draft. I don't know, not like a first round talent or anything like that, but like a potential guy that, NFL's talk. And then you got two probably all Big Ten type receivers in KJ Duff and Ian Strong, arguably maybe three. Let's see what kind of year DT Sheffield has. But you got three really good receivers, and you got a really good running game with Antoine Raymond. Unfortunately, Campbell got hurt, but Antoine Raymond, as you saw today, is just like basically Kyle Monungai 2.0. I mean, he's just really good, and it's like, how much more do you need? Like at some point, it's like you got to break through and get to that next level. Because again, year 6, like it feels like they should be in that second tier and beat it. It felt like they should have beaten Iowa last week, and they should have beaten Minnesota today. This should start becoming the norm, but instead it's just, again, like you said, just mistake after mistake, whether it's the errant snap from Zelinskis or like the blocked field goals now, the missed 3 straight misses after 18 straight. Like this stuff just can't happen. And then the third quarter where Minnesota basically just basically possessed the ball the entire quarter. I mean, just stuff like this in year 6 just can't happen. So as much as Greg wants to preach patience and, incremental growth, things like that, again, it's year 6. Like at some point, like they got to show that they're taking a step up.
Yeah. My thing is, I understand and I understand his frustration, and we all understand injuries and transfers and things, but he's speaking like this is some long-term NFL team where guys are under long-term contracts. I mean, this is college football. Guys matriculate, guys graduate, guys leave. You can't keep saying we'll get there as if this is the same players that are going to be here next year and you're going to incrementally improve your way into it. The program has to get there. And at year 6, I'm tired of hearing that, because at some point you've got to find a way with the roster you have to get over that hump. You've gotten yourself a really nice offense. You've put yourself in situations, whether last year or this year, where you're in winnable games and winnable situations against teams on that next tier, which I agree with. There's the 4-tier system. Teams on that second tier, you've been in positions 2 years in a row to beat those teams, and you've got to find a way to get it done, and they haven't gotten it done. So, I understand his frustration. If there's one thing I've seen from him, he will do a deep dive this week, but it's not good enough if we come back and squeak out 2 wins and don't make a bowl. It's only good enough if we get to a bowl game, and then I'm not jumping the gun on anything else, but it's time to take that step, and I'm tired of hearing we're going to get there. Even if he thinks that, how about you just keep that quote in your back pocket? You don't have to bring it up. Just talk about there was introspection there and honesty, so it's not like an excuse-laden speech, but put the "will get there" aside, because until you get there, just like I've been saying in my predictions, until you show me you can beat the teams, I don't want to hear you're going to get there. Just get there and do it. Mike, I got to hop off. I appreciate you guys. Always good to see you and having me on. I'll be back with you guys as the season progresses, but I'm going to go out and ponder my fandom and life right now. So I'll see you guys a little later.
All right, Larry, thanks once again for joining us. We really appreciate your thoughts every time you're hopping on with us. So enjoy the rest of try to enjoy the rest of your evening, I should say.
Do my best. But, thanks, guys. Bye.
All right, see you, bud. See you. So this is the second game in a row that Rutgers had, according to the ESPN win probability chart here, almost an 80% chance of winning a game with around the 8-minute mark in the fourth quarter. 77.8% at the 8:42 mark against.
Have they watched Rutgers defense?
Minnesota.
No, I'm saying has the ESPN probability chart watched Rutgers defense?
Apparently not. But if you look at the Iowa chart, it looks remarkably similar. 8:31
Does that say
left. Rutgers has a 77.9% chance of winning. And
Am I
that
going
was
nuts, or does that say 38-28?
that's what the score was. This
Oh,
was the
whoops,
Iowa game.
Oh, my bad,
Yeah,
my
I
bad. I
went
was like,
back.
wait a sec.
No, you're
I
good.
was like, oh, I thought I was going crazy for a second.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's something to be said that bad teams find ways to lose. And Rutgers does not feel like anything better than a bad team right now. We got Alec joining us as well. Alec, we just watched the Greg Schiano presser, kind of talking about some of the high level thoughts from what he said. I don't know if you had a chance to check it out yet, but yeah, Rutgers found a way to lose 2 games that late in the game they had almost an 80% chance of winning according to the ESPN win probability chart. So I don't know. Prove me wrong. Prove me that we're not a bad team. Go out and do something that nobody expects, like we did last year. But I mean, things are going to get worse before they get better. Like, I don't know if anyone's looked at the schedule for the next few weeks. And I know we all have, so I'm saying it with a little bit of sarcasm. But Rutgers is going on the road against Washington next week. Washington, I don't think, is beating Ohio State anymore. No, it's 7-3 at halftime.
It's close.
Washington hasn't lost a home game in the last 22 games. So they're 22-0 in their last 22 home games. Oregon, we'll see what they look like against Penn State tonight, but I'm not feeling great about the potential of coming out victorious homecoming against Oregon. And a plucky Purdue team who's not going to roll over and just give up and show you its belly like it did last year. And then Illinois looks like they got a little piss and vinegar still in them because they, showed what they were made of today. They were a 6.5 point underdog at home versus USC, and they were able to find a way to win with a walk-off field goal. But Maryland's playing better than we, I think, expected. And, I get it. It's September, Maryland, copyright the name. But then you got Ohio State and Penn State. Show me the 4 wins on that schedule. The 3 wins, I'm sorry, rather.
Yeah, I guess if you're looking at it's Washington, Purdue, and Maryland, that's your path because you ain't beating Oregon. I mean, I guess Illinois. I always kind of felt like Illinois was a little bit of a paper tiger, a little bit. Whereas I never really thought of them as like a top 10 team. I thought that was a little bit much. They're a good team, but I don't know. I felt like top 10 was too much. And as you saw last year, again, it's last year, but Rutgers was basically one play away from beating him. So I guess that it's tough because it's on the road. But again, that's if you want to say that's a toss up, you can, but. It's just none of these other than Purdue, none of these games are quote unquote easy, I think. And even Purdue, like you said, is plucky. So,
Alec, general thoughts on the game, thoughts on the presser, anything you got, just fire them away.
I mean, I have not been able to listen to the presser yet. To be completely honest, I haven't been able to really engage with anything aside from just general Twitter since the game ended because I had to head home. I was watching the game somewhere else, but once again, they did not play well. They did not execute at a high enough level to win the game, despite being put in a position many times to do so. I mean, you get a career best day from Antoine Raymond. He looked unbelievable out there running the football. Ethan Kaliakmanis, again, got off to that red hot start, and then something just clicked with Minnesota's defense, and something just clicked with Ethan, it seemed like, where he was just putting the ball in harm's way so much more. He had like 1 turnover-worthy play through the first 4 games. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think the PFF grades are out yet. I wouldn't be surprised if he surpassed that total today alone.
He actually had 0
that he was attempting.
0 through
he had
4
0?
games. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess the interception wasn't deemed a turnover-worthy play. So yeah, I mean, he's surely going to meet that total and then some. So yeah, they just didn't play well enough to win. Again, the execution, special teams. Again, I don't know what's going on with Jay Patel. I don't know if he has like the yips or whatever, because that field goal that was blocked, it wasn't total. I mean, the line definitely gave up some push, but it wasn't totally on the line. That was like a line drive kick and what should have been a chip shot. So I don't know what's going on with that. Just errors after errors. The tackling. Schiano likes to say, if you have 6 missed tackles in a game or whatever, 2 for each level, whatever, then you're not doing too bad. I haven't looked at how many missed tackles Rutgers had on the defensive side. But it's not even just missed tackles in terms of like numbers. You could tell this team was not even in a position to make a tackle. So they didn't even have the opportunity to get a lot of missed tackles because they weren't in position to attempt to miss the tackle to begin with. There were so many instances in that game. The two that really stick out in my mind, those 2 goal line possessions where it's at like the 7 or 8 yard line. The corner is standing on the goal line. And you see Lindsay, I don't even know if he checked into it or whatever. He just snaps, takes a 1-step drop, fires out to the side where, you should have an advantage there. If you're a defender, you're running at the guy who's coming off the catch after being, what's it called? After being stationary and still can't make the tackle. There's 3 guys there, still can't make the tackle. So it's just execution. I mean, we talked about this on the podcast with Daniel House, who was a great guest and really kind of told us a lot of the things that ended up happening in the game. A lot of the defensive issues, again, were pretty familiar, and they showed up again today. So they just didn't execute. The passing game kind of slowed down a little bit. I thought KJ Duff actually stepped up and did a really good job. Ian Strong was kind of bottled up. I haven't been able to rewatch yet because it's not really available, obviously. So I don't know what was going on with Strong, whether they were just bracketing him the entire time or he just wasn't getting open or whatever. But Duff definitely stepped up and did a good job. I thought Ethan, I understand where the NFL hype is coming from over the last couple weeks because he does look markedly improved from last year with the arm strength, the placement, the accuracy. But I think today's game showed the processing is still a work in progress. He does not have nearly the processing speed needed at times, where even if it's like, not even just, in when he's looking at his receivers to try to figure out where to go to, even when he sees a blitzer coming, he doesn't get into that mode of, all right, I got to make something happen with my legs. He just kind of lays down and takes a sack, which, I would rather him take a sack than throw an interception, obviously. But there's times where, even on that, even on the snap that took him out of field goal range, that kind of blew everything up. I felt like, now again, I haven't been able to rewatch, so I could be wrong if I do rewatch it. It felt like he could have at least tried to throw the ball away out of bounds. It just felt
I
like
agree.
everything was just a little bit too slow processing wise. Now, I don't know if that was a part of Minnesota's defense that was ready for him. I don't know, but just things were not processing quickly enough. Raymond did a very good job. I thought it was interesting to see Sam Brown out there for a few times. The opening drive, again, another missed opportunity where, you have goal to go at the 6-yard line. You run the ball 3 times and you get nowhere. And then that leads to the blocked field goal. And what do you know? They lose this game by 3 points. So just the execution was not where it needed to be today. Even if there was a lot of good that came from this game, I mean, when you double up a team in terms of possession, total plays, and then you're still only up by 7, Minnesota averaged a whole yard per play more than Rutgers, so it wasn't that much of a difference. But Rutgers still ended up running 17 more plays than Minnesota did. It just felt like there was execution issues, just missed opportunities. That's what ended up deciding this game, and now your season's on the brink.
Yeah, no, it's.
I know I went for a while there, but I had to get it all out.
No, I said, I gave you the ball and let you ISO, and that's what I wanted you to do. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Some of it we've touched on, some of it we haven't. But just generally, like, this was, like, does anybody feel like Minnesota was the better team after watching both teams play for 60 minutes? Like, I'm not saying
like
bad.
It felt like they felt because it just felt very back and forth. They felt kind of evenly matched because there was like first quarter was pretty much like all Rutgers, and then the second quarter, and then like you said, it kind of clicked where Minnesota just once they got that like 71-yard bomb, it just kind of clicked for them a little bit. So it was like you had them on the mat, you had their foot on the throat, and you let them out, and then they started clicking more. And then that third quarter is just where everything just kind of went to shit. It's like, it's hard. They didn't even, like I said, they barely even possess the ball. And it's just, that was the big momentum shift, I think. And then from there, it was a game. And like we've talked about in the past, where a fourth quarter close game, anything can really happen. And it just, Minnesota was just a few plays better. And it's like, if it can't, and it came down to that errant snap where it's like, if he doesn't have that, Rutgers could potentially continue that drive because they were driving pretty well. So it's like, before that errant snap, it's like, if that doesn't happen, maybe Rutgers scores a go-ahead touchdown, wins the game. Like I could have easily seen that, to be honest, but didn't happen. That's the difference. But like you said, bad teams find a way to lose. And the difference between Rutgers and Minnesota was pretty much felt like one play. And just the disappointing thing is that we felt like coming into this game and really coming to the season that Rutgers was beyond that, where they could surpass a team like Minnesota and get to that next tier. But again, it's just they're just still in that kind of third tier that I talked about, and doesn't seem like if this team isn't able to get out of it, then it's just hard to think of which one will.
I saw
Yeah.
a tweet from I believe it was I hope I'm attributing this right. I believe it was Ellis Gordon, one of my former WRSU and Daily Target colleagues, said this, and I thought it was a great point by him. Let me see if I can pull up the exact tweet where he said, when you look at it was okay. When you look at the 2023 Scarlet Knights and this Scarlet Knights, it's complete polar opposites. The 2023 team, there really wasn't a lot of explosion, but they were fundamentally sound. They played good defense. This team, there's a lot of explosion all over the place, whether it's on offense, defense, whatever. But there's just not a lot of fundamental play, and the defense has just struggled the entire year. And I think that was a pretty good point when you're just looking at the two teams. Also, I'm sure you guys have mentioned this already, but that third quarter, the pass rush got absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Lindsey had all day to throw. And I think I said this in one of our I forget where I said this. I said it somewhere, but that first sack that Rutgers got, it was just kind of like Lindsey kind of roaming around in the middle of nowhere in the pocket and just kind of ran into a defensive lineman. I said, I don't know if anyone deserves credit for that sack, because it really wasn't like I felt like the secondary got better as the game went along, and there's still breakdowns, obviously, but a lot of the issues on defense just came from the fact that Lindsey had all day to throw, and there really wasn't any resistance at all from in terms of the passing game. I thought the run defense actually wasn't bad. I thought it was actually pretty solid at times. But that's also the bare minimum you would expect when a team is down to a redshirt freshman third string running back. So
No, I thought the rushing defense was actually pretty damn good today.
yeah, that's like it was pretty good. They had a couple of missed tackles, things like that, but they were in the right spots. And when it came to parts of the defense earlier on in the season, they weren't even close to the right spot. So I think it's a work in progress and a step in the right direction. They were in the right spots, but they just couldn't finish those plays. So that's a step that you need to take as well. But again, you're going up against a team without their two top running backs and a rushing offense that really relies on Darius Taylor and even AJ Turner as well. So yeah, I just think I don't know. The execution was the difference in this game, and a lot of people have already said, and you kind of already showed it. Like the better coached team today won this game, and I also think it's interesting that we keep hearing about Jayshon Benjamin, and he has 3 combined touches of the last 2 games. So like, where is he? He's out there for a few snaps and that's it. They keep saying want to get him the ball and all that, but he's just not getting the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing against Sam Brown, but there was that one play that he just got, barreled over by I forget the Minnesota, I think lineman.
Yeah, it was number 6.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, I feel bad because he's a guy coming off a really major injury and really trying, but it's just like, after watching that play, it's like after years of watching Kyle Monungai and now Anton Raymond, their pass protecting, that's just like, oof, like I don't know if he should be in there pass protecting.
And that might be why we didn't see much more of him after that play in the game. But
I was also thinking, like, was Raymond hurt on that drive? Because that was a 3-and-out drive, but Brown was on the field for all 3 drives. And I remember Raymond took a hit at one point. He was a little bit slow getting up, and he got like a little bit checked out on the sideline. I don't know. It wasn't like anything serious or anything like that, but I was wondering if he was like banged up. But even on that point, like Sam Brown hasn't played a game in almost a year. I think like, a week or so or 2 from like a year to when he got hurt against Wisconsin. On that third down, Michigan or Wisconsin or Minnesota. Oh my goodness, Minnesota is probably going to send the house on you. I feel like Benjamin. He's a smaller guy, obviously, but I feel like he's more proven in pass pro. So maybe would have gone with someone like him. I don't know. Maybe we're just grasping at straws here, but there's just kind of so much to take away in terms of the execution that just was not there. There needs to be this is my biggest point that I came away from, like, to boil it down. You can only preach development and execution, as the hallmarks of your program so many times without it showing up on Saturdays. That's the biggest thing.
Or Fridays.
That too. Yeah, Fridays too.
No, that's a great point. Like, you need to see results. You need to see guys who, he talks about guys like Hank Hughes, who they're so proud of. If you would have seen him day one as a freshman, like you would have said this guy will never play, and he like falls on a fumble late in a game against an FCS team. Like that is not development. Like this guy doesn't play because he's not good enough, because he was never good enough. Like Schiano pointed that out. He was a recruit who they brought in who basically couldn't play, and after 5 years here, he still can't play. And I feel like there's a lot of guys who are like that, where they're not getting developed, and you want, obviously those are some of your favorite stories, or when guys do kind of look like they can't even run right, let alone play football, and then by the time they're a junior, they're a starter and borderline all conference. But we haven't really seen that with a ton of guys, and we've tried to go out into the transfer portal market, and outside of I should say outside of on offense, we've seen it for sure. And I'm not trying to say nobody on the team is developed, but we're saying Schiano talked about, he thought that the defense has taken small steps forward each game. And I think the run defense certainly was better today than maybe the whole season. But that was in large part because they didn't have a mobile quarterback that we had to worry about. And so when your team doesn't have a mobile quarterback, Greg Schiano's defenses, especially in the run game, look a lot better because they can dedicate that extra man in the box to the running back, and they don't have to, I think Schiano maybe has to fundamentally rethink how he calls defenses, or, not, I know he doesn't call the plays, but what he looks for in a play caller, because every team's got a mobile quarterback now. The outliers are the ones who don't. So you need to kind of build that as a foundational premise, that the guy who's got the ball in his hands at the snap probably can run it. So he needs to be accounted for, and we need to understand how to stop that. I want to talk about a few key plays that I feel like were the 3 or 4 that we can point to as to why we lost this game. The field goal obviously sucks and hurts looking at the final score, but there was so many opportunities throughout the rest of the game where that could have been overcome. And I want to focus primarily on the fourth quarter. The first for me was that 3rd and 7 where we got the ball with 6 minutes left. We're up by 4. We had just, we talked about those 2 third quarter drives where they just ran, basically they were just converting on a lot of third downs. They had a 13-play touchdown drive where they went 85 yards, and then they had a 15-play, 75-yard field goal drive. The defense held up on 2 straight possessions there. Like, to hold them to a field goal after having a 15-play drive is impressive on its face. And then to force a 3-and-out led by that Bradley Weaver timely sack, they kind of proved that, they got a little left in the tank late in the game, but not converting on that 3rd and 7 really put us in a bad spot, because we could have just, ran the 8-minute offense and iced the game out, but they obviously didn't. That's to me play number 1 as to why we didn't win that game. Play number 2, maybe the most painful of any of them, is the botch snap. I rewatched the clip a few times. It looks like, I don't know if Zelinskis thought he heard a clap. I don't know what their kind of silent count cadence is, or their high noise cadence is, but the snap was low and it was early. It went right through his legs. I thought he maybe could have just yeeted it past the line of scrimmage for an incompletion to set up a 3rd and 10, but 3rd and 25, they run what I can only describe as like a surrender play. That, the crosser to Ian Strong, like, I would rather even them have just called like a draw rather than run that play, because it had no upside. It forces you to use your final timeout. It added nothing, because, like, we've known that Dane Pizarro is kind of their, deep field goal kicker for a long time, but if that's a 50-yard attempt versus a 56-yarder, like, the way he kicked that, it was actually, like, it looked good from the TV copy until like the last second. So if that's like a 53-yarder even, I think that maybe, this is a game that gets into overtime, but to I don't know, you need a little bit more there than the 3-yard shallow cross. Are there any other plays that stood out to you guys that kind of were blinking red lights? Like, this is why we lost this game, especially late.
I'll say one
No, but
thing
I was
on.
sorry.
I
No, I was just
I
gonna
was gonna
mention.
say.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Go ahead,
It's
Craig.
okay. You
You
can go,
start.
Alec. I've been talking enough.
Okay, I'll go then. I will say one thing about the that last third down on the crosser. Like they have done that before, where it was in the Ohio game. Now I know we're comparing MAC opponent to Big Ten opponent, where you're in third and long and you get the ball to Strong, just kind of give him a head of steam to turn upfield, and it actually worked out pretty well in that game again because of the talent difference on defense. So I understand what they were going for. Like you would rather get a lower ceiling play and just get yards than try to get like a higher ceiling, whatever the heck, whatever at that point. But yeah, it's just so frustrating because Strong just barely missed out on breaking that tackle, and I mean he could have really taken that for a good gain if he'd broken that tackle. Just a better play by the defender. Now I have not seen the Daryl Jabome holding call. Granted, it only ended up in 3 points anyways, so grand scheme of things, it didn't end up mattering that much. I couldn't tell if that was a good call or not, but it just felt like once again the sails were kind of taken out. The wind was kind of taken out of the sails, I should say, on that play, and just some of those like second and third downs where the protection and the wide receivers, the patterns just kind of break down eventually, and then Ethan just was not quick enough to react to try to get away from it. Like he is a fairly athletic quarterback, but he wasn't able to shift gears and get into that quick enough. So I mean, I can't think of like any one particular play that kind of besides the two that you talked about that kind of swung things like that, but just some of those I mean, just some of those like sacks that he took, it just felt like it could have been avoidable. Now, granted, again, we're only working off the TV broadcast. We don't have the all 22 or anything like that, so we don't get to see down the field. But even just feeling like it just looks like he could have switched gears a little bit faster and just gotten upfield a little bit more. Just some of those just killed the drives.
Yeah, I was just going to focus on that play more. Yeah, it's just the fact that we've seen, I mean, with an offense that we've been touting for weeks, that the best they could come up with was basically a 3-yard play. It's like you said, I was having that same exact thought as you, Mike, that if they could have just made it like a 50-yarder, the way he kicked it, he was at distance. It just didn't have the accuracy that he just, again, it's just like he couldn't, it's hard to fathom that they came up, that's all they could come up with is just a 3-yard play. Like you said, a draw play to Raymond, as he showed throughout this game, probably would have gotten more yardage. I mean, it looked like there was a 3rd and 15 that he turned into a first down. That led to at the time, the go ahead touchdown. That was it. That felt like a huge play at the time, which now kind of falls to the wayside because they lost. But yeah, it's just hard to fathom. And this is the second, and it's hard to fathom that this is the second straight week. Again, this is kind of different circumstances because, like I said, that third quarter they barely had the ball, but second straight week they only had 1 touchdown in the second half. Like it's almost like these games for them are just following basically an identical formula. They come out like a house on fire, score 21 points in the first half, and then just like it's just wipe out in the second half, just 1 touchdown, and it's like it's kind of hard to believe that. Like 5 minutes into the game, you're like, oh man, this team is like, you're feeling yourself. You're like, oh, this team this is what we've been hoping for. And then right after that, it's just like you get to the second half, it just feels like Rutgers of old.
Yeah, and I want to pull these stats up, but I feel like every player who's faced Rutgers so far this year, has like had their, at least quarterback rather. Every quarterback has seemingly had like their best game of their season against Rutgers. So I'm looking at Parker Navarro's game charts. His highest weekly grade was a 90.1. His highest passing grade was an 81.2. Both of those were against Rutgers. I'm looking at Finn's now on Miami of Ohio. He's played in 3 games this year. His best offensive game was a 73.7. I'll just pull it off. I'll share it. I don't know what I'm doing. This is silly of me not to share it and just to say it out loud to you guys. So you got Parker Navarro, clearly his best game against Rutgers. You look at Daquan Finn, Clearly his best game against Rutgers. Let's take a look at, well, I guess Norfolk we won't count because it's not fair. You look at Mark Gronowski. I'll let you guys guess at home who you think he had his best game against. Oh, look at that. It's Rutgers.
Oh, not even UMass.
Spoiler. And Drake Lindsay, I'm going to go out on a limb and say he had his best game against Rutgers as well. If you look at him statistically, he had 290 yards against Buffalo. He had 139 yards against Northwestern State, and that's comes with the caveat of that was really only in the first quarter of the game. And then he had 205 yards against Cal in a loss, and against Rutgers he had 324 yards. So we're just making every single quarterback look like they're the best quarterback in the nation. The game of Alec, you said there's a comment here that you wanted to highlight and go over. George Forbes.
It's just a little bit above the one that's currently highlighted.
Okay. I don't know which one's currently highlighted. Do you know the timestamp?
5:32.
All right, perfect. Yeah, Rutgers is at a fourth quarter lead of every game they played this year, and they're currently 3-2. Not great. And they very well could be 2-3 if not for, a super ballsy 4th and 7 conversion against Ohio. Yeah, I mean, this defense is absolute dog water. I mean, they're not playing well. Schiano talks about incremental growth. I feel like it's not do I think they're the most talented team in the Big Ten? No. Do I think they're even in the quarter or the top half of the Big Ten in terms of talent on defense? No. But they are not as bad as they're playing this year. And that I feel like comes down to scheme. I feel like Rob Smith has just done such a poor job calling plays. And, if you listen to our podcast with Daniel House this week, he, kind of pointed to, Rob Smith's deficiencies when he was at Minnesota. It's the same stuff that we're seeing again. And it was talk about just hitting on everything. Daniel House, he said, I don't have a good guess as to who's going to win, but I feel like the team to get to 31st is going to win it. And sure enough, who wins it? Minnesota. Who got the 31st? Minnesota. 31-28. They've kind of gone through a lot here.
I keep saying in my predictions, I'm like, Rutgers high-powered offense. The other team doesn't have enough to keep up, but this defense is just so bad that every team is scoring in the 30s, even when their offense really isn't that good.
Yeah, no, I don't think Rutgers has played a good offense yet. If we're talking about top court, 25% of the FBS, I don't feel like Rutgers has played a good offense. We've made a lot of bad to mediocre offenses look good to great, but this
yeah, and I mean
that Oregon game is gonna be
they're gonna
get your popcorn ready for that one.
Yeah,
because you're gonna probably turn on a movie after about 5 minutes.
Yeah, and then I mean, even you just look at obviously we talk about Washington and Oregon, heck, even Purdue and Maryland, those two offenses, they've looked pretty good. And I think I don't know, just looking at the schedule ahead, I don't know. I don't know how this gets better because, like you mentioned, it's a scheme and play calling thing. It's also a talent thing. Yeah, they have some solid they have some solid stretches, and we are seeing at least some improvement. But some improvement is not good enough to win these games in the Big Ten, especially when the offenses are only going to get better as it goes along this season. So I don't know how you fix this because there's just a lot that needs to be fixed. I don't know how you can do it in over one bye week. Granted, we said some of the same things last year and they turned it around, but I feel like there's so many more issues defensively this year. Like last year, it felt like, all right, they're just kind of they're banged up. There's too many guys that are in the game that aren't ready from the guys that are injured, and that would kind of turn that around, I guess.
And
But
last year
this
they
year,
were good defensively early on. They just kind of fell off a cliff. So it was just about
yeah,
getting them back onto the cliff. This team has never shown to be good defensively.
yeah, exactly. And there's just so many more things that need to be fixed. I don't know if you can do it over one bye week is the problem.
Grades just popped for the Minnesota game if you want to take a look at those before we head out. So these literally just showed up in the last few minutes. Overall, Rutgers got a 66.5 grade on the game, which is their second worst showing of the season. The offense got a 72.4 grade. The passing offense, look at that outlier for those who can't see it, 47.9. That is,
And that was after he
bad.
had his 9 for 9 start.
9 for 9 start, and he finished 21 for 35. So over the last 24 passes, he completed what? 12 of them? 12 of 24, 50% over the, final 3 quarters basically. Pass blocking, rightfully got a pretty poor grade, allowing 6 sacks. That'll happen. Receiving got a 68.2 grade. Rushing looks like led the way with an 81.7, which again checks out.
Best game.
Run blocking 76.6. Defense gets its second worst grade of the season with a 56.2. Run defense, I thought this would be a little higher, 52.3. Tackling, worst grade of the year at a 45.3. Take a look at how many missed tackles they got. Pass rush 63.2 grade. Coverage 54.6. Let's take a look at the offense grades by player. Antoine Raymond led the team with an 82.6 grade. Kobe Asamoah right below him with an 82.5. Ethan Kaliakmanis with his worst game by far on the season with a 51.7 overall grade, second worst grade on the team, 47.9 passing grade. Let's take a look at the defense now. Keshawn Griffin, he had a few really nice plays in run defense. He had the highest grade on the defensive side of the ball, 78.2. Jabril Abdul Rahman with 10 snaps. I think that might be a high on the season for him. The second best grade with a 70.0. Kevin Levy stepped in and played a few snaps, and he had the worst grade on the team at a 33.1 grade. Zaire Angoy had a bad grade with a 40.3. Kaj Sanders, again, with a terrible grade. If you look at his grades on the season, he's only got one game where he was graded above a 60, which was against Iowa. 60 is considered like passable average, but he's had 3 games now under 50 on PFF. I do want to take a look at the missed tackles here.
The numbers are a lot of them.
Yeah, 13 missed tackles on the day. 2 by Jacoby Henderson, 2 by Keshawn Griffin, 2 by Zaire Angoy, 2 by Jetty Ladd, and then 1 from Abram Wright, Bo Mascow, Cam Miller, Eric O'Neill, and Bradley Weaver. Just overall a really poor tackling performance. Greg Schiano highlighted that in his presser. Bad game for the secondary. Let's take a look at I want to see Ethan's pressure and depth chart here. Just really poor across the board. The only one where he was decent when he wasn't blitzed, he was 15 of 21 for 152 yards and 2 touchdowns. When he was blitzed, which was about 40% of the time, 6 of 13, 1 interception, and probably a whole lot of sacks. He had 4 turnover-worthy plays on the day. Obviously not great.
And the other one that sticks out to me, 0 big-time throws, which he had, I believe, 11 of this season.
Yep, he had 11 through the first 4 games, a bunch in the Iowa game. Anything you guys wanted to look at before I get this off the screen?
One thing I will say is, I mean, these grades do change, so we might see a little bit of adjusting. But it's concerning that a lot of the negatives that were taken away from this game, with that we saw with our eyes, are reflected in the PFF, at least preliminary reports.
Yep. All right. Let's talk some closing thoughts.
I did have one thing that
Shoot.
I noticed on the so looking at Drake Lindsay's side, he was 24 of 30 when kept clean for 250 yards and a touchdown. Even when he was under pressure, he was 7 of 11 for 74 yards and 2 touchdowns. So Rutgers really just had really no answer for the passing game, which is concerning when you realize that Lindsay he hasn't looked great when it comes to how he's looked this season. He's obviously a redshirt freshman. His grade, I mean, it's concerning that also he was only pressured on, I guess, under pressure, quote unquote, on 11 of his 41 dropbacks. The defensive front seven really was not able to get in the backfield at all, and it was especially stark in the second half, especially when it wasn't even like they were getting beat over the top in that third quarter. A lot of it was just like underneath, quick game. The tight ends were there. Again, the tight ends were an issue. That was another thing that we talked about on the podcast before the game. Some of the quick game tight end stuff, it was just wide open and it just weren't fast enough to respond. So yeah, a lot of the stuff that we talked about, it's with our eye test, it's reflected in some of the analytical grades. So we'll see if it also reflects that when the grades are finalized.
Yeah, no, those grades will tinker a bit. I don't think they'll, like you said, kind of change, wholesale, but they will be tweaked a little bit. Let's talk final thoughts on this game as we head into the bye week. I think there's a lot of problems with this team that you can't fix over a week off, and our schedule is brutal. 4 of our next 5 games are on the road. I don't know who we really pissed off with this schedule at the Big Ten.
Well, they had a good one last year that they kind of
they did, but this is I feel like this schedule is way harder than last year's was easy, I guess. 5 of 6 games in a row, all conference games that are on the road, feels it's just excessive, I guess. But this has the chance to turn into a very ugly final 7 games unless things really turn around. So I will be watching intently, but I am not feeling a whole lot of confidence in the outlook on the rest of the season. How about you, Alec?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, until we are given a reason to believe that things will turn around on the defensive side and that things will stabilize themselves on the offensive side, where is the level of confidence coming from? Because, I mean, the offense has been great, absolutely excellent. In the first couple drives of the game has been really encouraging to see, but also on the flip side, not so encouraging, almost to the same extent. Things kind of tail off once defenses adjust and things like that. So, um, and then the defense, they're able to if they can put together some kind of consistent stretches, not just for like a drive or two at a time where you think things are getting better, things like that. Especially against, like you mentioned, I mean, the mobile quarterbacks on the schedule. You got Damon Williams, you got Dante Moore, who is more of a not as mobile, but can still go on the move. And kind of like you said, everyone's got mobile quarterbacks now. Then you got a guy like Malik Washington, who there's not a lot of film on him, but he's a dynamic guy. So I just don't know how this is all fixed in a week. And it seems like things are close to entering a tailspin if they don't fix it quickly, but I just don't know how they do it. I guess that's why they get paid the big bucks to fix this stuff, and we don't.
Yeah, I was just gonna say disappointing. Just kind of right now feels like the word of the year for Rutgers sports between Ace and Dylan and the basketball and now the football, where it's like there's a reason that we all picked either 6-6 or 7-5 coming into the year. As brutal as this schedule is, I mean, I thought and think we viewed there are winnable games on this schedule to get to bowl eligibility between the 3 out of conference games. Iowa could have been a winnable game. This could have been a winnable game. I mean, again, Washington, it's tough to win in Washington, but again, if year 6, if you're trying to get to that next tier, that's a game that you should go out and possibly even win. And then Maryland, Purdue, if you want to say Illinois, we'll see what they look like come when we play them. It's just like when Rutgers plays them. So it's just like as difficult and as brutal as the schedule it is. There were toss-up games there, and right now they're kind of 0 for 2 in those toss-up games. And if you want to show that you're taking that next step, a lot of these games should be viewed as really opportunities to prove that. And it's just at some point you just got to get to that next level and start beating these teams, because otherwise it feels like they're kind of just running in circles. And again, year 6, like how many programs around the country does a head coach in year 6 say we'll get there? I mean, to be honest, at this point, it just feels like Rutgers should be beyond beating a Minnesota and beating an Iowa at home Friday night, raucous crowd blackout. These just feel like games that Rutgers should be winning and proving that they're finally getting to that next step in the Big Ten. But again, I mean, what are they now, 9-29 in the Big Ten under Schiano? It's just like, it's not all his fault. Obviously, he took over a program that was just basically in the dumpster. But at some point, it's just like incremental growth needs to start becoming exponential, in my opinion.
Yeah, we need to take the next step if he doesn't want just total fan apathy to kind of kick in, which we are teetering on the edge of right now, because I think people are tired of seeing the same bad movie each weekend when it comes to 2/3 of our performance on special teams and defense. Like, the offense can't carry everything, despite how well they've played. They have their limits, and we've seen them the last 2 weeks. 28 points should be more than enough to win in the Big Ten, and it wasn't. So, all right. Well, we want to thank each and every one of you for joining us on another post-game show. But for me, Alec, and Craig, this has been another edition of the Night Report podcast, signing off.